Thank you. If you'd like to take us in line, where you are. Lovely, thank you. Okay, so good evening, good afternoon, members and members of the public. I'd like to welcome the members of the public and press who are watching today's meeting of the Corporate Parenting Subcommittee on Wednesday, the 29th of March, starting at 4 p.m. I hope you find the discussion interesting. Tracy Stevenson, Chair of the Cambridgeshire Foster Carers Association, may join us remotely as an observer if she's able to do so. She's both welcome and encouraged to take part in the discussion of all parts of the report on the agenda today, but doesn't have any voting rights. And separately, she pointed out she may not be able to join us because of domestic activities. But to help the flow of the discussion, I'll allow members to speak more than once on each item if appropriate, but please keep your contributions concise. There's no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, I'll adjourn the meeting and we'll leave the room by the doors to my left and use the fire escape to the car park. The theme of today's meeting is health. Ricky Cooper is away, so our lead officer is Matthew Sampson, Head of Service in Children's Services. So thank you very much. So the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence and declarations of interest. So Rashenda, would you like to update us on that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Nessinger, who is substituted by Councillor Slatter.
So are there any other apologies? No, I don't think so. So does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? No, thank you. So item 2 then is the minutes of the meeting on the 16th of November 2022 and the minutes action log. So members, can I just check with you? Do you have any items of accuracy with regard to the minutes? Thank you. Councillor Bulat.
Thank you. Just on page 4, the second to last paragraph, where it refers to the combined authorities ESOL local partnership. Just to clarify, I am the chair of the local partnership for the South. There's also a North partnership, and they're currently recruiting for a chair because it does appear from the minutes as if I'm chairing like the entire area, which is not true because it's North and South. So just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
The minute currently says it was agreed that the virtual school would contact Councillor Bulat, Combined Authority Independent Chair for the North.
So I'm in the South partnership.
So perhaps can we suggest some wording for the South part of?
Yes, it's called the South ESOL local partnership.
So if we insert the word South there,
yes, and
solve it.
That would be great. And I think once the chair for the North is filled in, like of course I will be able to work with that person as well once they're appointed as well. Just to acknowledge there are 2 different partnerships, but cooperating partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bulat. Are you okay with that, Rashenda? Thank you. Are there any other items of accuracy? Councillor Hay.
Not so much on accuracy, but on the action log, items 58 to 61, I've got nothing in the update column nor the status.
Could you just give us the page, Councillor
Page
Hay?
10.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, and which items was it?
Items 58 through to 61 inclusive. There's nothing under update or status.
Yes, and indeed, actually, I'd asked the question, were they? On the slides that came through, whether slides had been sent through. I did wonder, I don't recall receiving, for example, I was looking at item 60. Officers noted that some slides on training to interpret data for missing children had been produced and could be shared with councillors. I'm not sure that was done. Okay, so are you? No, okay, so can we just ask that, and also I had noticed that on item 60 on the performance scorecard, we'd asked that the statistic on page 132 of that last agenda, it should read the time that children had been in care was 127 days, and requested that data was specified in future reports, and that hasn't been done because it's the same on the current scorecard. And then the item 60, another item under 60 was requested site of the pathway planning workshop presentation for social workers, and that a report would be taken to the next meeting or a workshop arranged, and I wasn't sure that had been done either. So can we pick up on all those items and check that we get some update on them before the next meeting? Oops, sorry. Thank you. With those notes, however, members, are we happy to approve that there are otherwise an accurate record of the meeting? I'm happy with that. Good. Everyone's nodding. Thank you very much. So we'll note that, and I'll just sign them. So item 3 then is petitions and public questions, but we have received no petitions or public questions this month. So moving on to item 4 is the participation report. And we've got Shalina Chandu, the Quality Assurance Lead, who will introduce us to this item. Thank you. Thank you, Shalina.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just take you through some of the highlights of the report. The Children Care Council enjoyed very much meeting corporate parents once again at the informal corporate parenting subcommittee in January, and were able to share some of their views on health services and also on the new virtual school project, which is usualizing care. They continue to meet in person on a monthly basis, and they're working on their own projects, as well as receiving consultation requests from different services. We had a recent consultation request from South Cambridgeshire District Council. It was around the influencing the impact of services on young people. We also had a visit from the Chief Executive, Stephen Meyer, and also the Chair of the Children and Young People Committee, Councillor Goodliff, in their most recent meeting. The Care Leaver Forum has been focusing on issues in relation to care leavers. They've been looking at suitable housing. They're looking at the joint housing protocol. That's for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And a focus group was arranged with Cambridgeshire and Peterborough care leavers to facilitate this. The feedback has been shared with the service, and we look forward to the service coming back with a draft protocol in due course. The Children Care Council, the Care Leaver Forum, and Young Trainers all attended a recording studio in the February half term, and this was in relation to the Every Word Matters project. So the recordings are currently being edited to a summary so that can be used alongside the final animation. The young people were very interested in this particular discussion and said that they would like to develop this into a series of podcasts. And so that would be great because this can enhance training materials that have been used for carers, social workers, and other professionals. Our young recruiters continue to be very actively involved in recruitment. So recently interviewed with the Leaving Care Service and our own participation team. They work with the principal social worker, interviewing newly qualified social workers for the next assisted and supported year of employment places for both Peterborough and Cambridgeshire. And they also accepted an invitation to work with Anglia Ruskin University, and they were assessing candidates for the social work degree programme. The young inspectors are on their next project. So the current project is inspecting Cherry Lodge, which is a residential setting for children with complex needs. They've had the inspection meeting, they met with some of the staff, and they're currently collating their report, which will be shared very soon. The young trainers continue to support training for foster carers, and most recently were involved in social work training. So it was for the student social workers on the council's assisted and supported year in employment. And this gave the young people a really good opportunity to see how existing training can be adapted for different audiences. And we've noted the increase in their confidence and their facilitation skills just through this. We also arranged some youth leadership training events in February and March. So we had 2 days This was facilitated by the British Youth Council, was open to children and young people from all of our groups. Attendees gave very positive feedback, in particular the first session, which was about problem solving and confidence building. A lot of very good feedback. And our young people said they would use the problem solving strategies straight away. The second session was on confidence building and leadership in general, and the young people were interested in this, and some in particular have asked for an opportunity to use these skills. So we're looking at what project they would like to come up with and use their leadership skills to facilitate this project. In terms of our activities, we have our Easter activities program coming up. It includes a visit to an escape room, laser tag, and a trampoline park. We've also arranged a virtual craft session, and these are all, as usual, activities the young people have decided on. We're finalising our summer programme, and we have the Children in Care Awards date, so the annual awards date and venue have been confirmed, and invitations should have been sent to all corporate parents, and we very much look forward to seeing some of you there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Shalina. And I just wanted to, first of all, thank you and the rest of the participation team, you and Robin and the rest of the officers, for all the work that you do with our young people to encourage them to engage in all these different activities, which I'm sure broaden their horizons enormously. So thank you so much. Just one thing I wanted to pick up. I note that the last time the phrase usualising care was used, the young people didn't know what it meant. So can I just suggest we apply a bit of what is the word, every word matters logic to this and try and find a phrase that the young people are more likely to understand. Getting used to, or I'm sure you can think of a way that will help them to feel this is for them, not about them.
Absolutely. And we'll take that to the virtual school who are leading on the project.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you. And the other one is I'm delighted that the connection was made with my district councillor colleague, Richard Stobart, who interviewed them on the Children in Care Council as part of the Task and Finish group that we'd asked him to engage with young people. And he did so with a number of groups, but I was really pleased that he met the Children in Care Council. I also am really pleased to hear that, you know, through the work that you've delivered through the council's assisted supported year in employment, that young people are gaining confidence, because I think that's so important for them to feel that they have a place in society. So thank you very much indeed for the work you've done on that, and thank you for a very succinct and helpful report. Councillor Slatter.
Yes, thank you. I'm not quite sure which paragraph it was, but the part that our Children Care Council have done in terms of staff interviewing. I was at the interview for quite senior posts on Friday, and their question was passed on and went down very well. I think the interviewees thought it was a perfectly good question, and they did answer it carefully, and it did play a part in the assessment, let's put it that way. So it does get through. You might like to reassure them. So I can tell you what the question was. You know what the question was, but I think that's slightly wrong in terms of an interview process. The Children in Care Council, could you tell me who is in that and how many of them are there? Because we obviously only see 2 or 3, which is great, but oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't put that off. Sorry.
I think you'll find that's £10 to the chair's charity.
Oh dear. It's an officer. Does that get me off it? Anyway.
Yeah, so in total, we have around 11 young people who attend the Children Care Council, but they won't all attend at the same time. Some of them have after school clubs, etc. So we do find that we normally have our meetings on a Thursday, and we have a different set of young people who will attend, and then you will see a different set of young people on a Wednesday when we have this meeting. But it does depend on what other activities they have going on.
Right. Thank you. the forum is a similar question, really. I was wondering just how many, because I know you would be very keen to reach as many as possible, but there are all sorts of circumstances that make that difficult. But just to give us an idea of how big is the forum, and is it an open so people can come in and out of it? They're not there for life or excluded for life, as it were.
Yes, for care leavers, we find that we will have very, very different numbers each time, and it won't be the same people. So it's very much an open forum. What we found is for care leavers, we need to let them know what the agenda is, and they'll make a decision on whether they'd like to attend if they have particularly strong views on that particular topic. So for example, when we discussed the leaving care service, and in particular the joint housing protocol, there were 6 young people. There might be a time, I think we talked about health at one stage, 2 young people attended. It really does depend. It is an area we're trying to recruit more young people to. We've been working with the leaving care service, and we're asking the PAs to encourage young people to just make that first step and just attend one. You know, we put on food and we will discuss whatever they'd like. We did a meet and greet, for example, in November. We are trying to encourage more young people there because there are obvious areas that we need their experience and feedback on. And it is slightly hard to engage with care leavers on a regular basis.
Yeah, certainly appreciate that, and thank you.
Thank you, Shalina. Okay, thank you. Councillor Boulat.
Thank you. I was really pleased to see that the young recruiters have recently accepted an invitation to work with Anglia Ruskin University. So I was wondering if you could tell me more a bit about that program, who would get the opportunity to be involved, and like how many people would be involved in that program. It seems like a really interesting opportunity to assess candidates for some of the degrees programs they have at the university. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is actually an invitation for our young people to attend Anglia Ruskin every 2 months. It's for about an 8-month period, but every 2 months there's an opportunity. We've decided that 2 young people would be an appropriate number. Obviously, when it's school time, that's care leavers. When it's the school holidays, it can be our younger people as well. We have a pool of young recruiters. These are all trained and supported to do this. And anyone who shows an interest in joining this group also undergoes training. So these are already young people. We have around 20 young people who are trained. So what we do is every time we have a date, we ask around who would like to. And this time we had 2. We've already done 1 this month. And then in 2 months' time, we'll have another session. Again, we'll go out and ask which young people would like to be involved.
Thank you very much. That's very, I always am impressed by the amount of background planning that needs to go into all of these activities. So thank you very much, Shalina. Did Councillor Slatter want to ask something else? Oh, Councillor Hay, I'd asked her before.
Sorry, I
Okay,
know
Councillor
you did
Hay.
ask me earlier, but one thing I would like to know a bit about, I understand the young inspectors went to inspect Cherry Lodge, which I think, is admirable. It's the type of thing that we need to get them doing to get their views. And you say at the end of the paragraph that they're currently working on a report. Will that report be coming before this committee?
And the report will be shared with Ricky, and I'm happy for it to then come here. If you would like it, then it can come via Ricky.
I think we had a summary report from you in terms of the participation report
Yes.
on the previous location. I'm sorry.
It was a supervised contact centre.
Yes, exactly. So we had a very good report from that. So I think if we could have a report to us, that would be
Actually,
great.
it would be lovely if we could incorporate that into the informal meeting,
Yes.
because then the young people can present their own findings.
Yes, indeed.
I'll
That
take
would
an
be
action for
excellent.
that.
Yes. The thing that's confusing me is the young people have already spoken to us about the supervised contact centre, haven't they? Yes, they've already
Yes.
spoken to us once.
But this is a separate
Yes,
inspection.
exactly.
Yes.
So yes, if they could bring that to us at the informal, that'd be great. Thank you. So The recommendations are we've been asked to note the content of the report and raise any queries, which I think we've done. Okay, members, thank you. So the next item is item 5. Can we just, thank you very much, Shalina. Can we just check if Tracy has been able to join us? Okay, yes, she contacted me earlier on. So Despina, will you be presenting the report? Thank you. So the next item is the report from the Cambridgeshire, sorry, item 5 is report from the Cambridgeshire Foster Carers Association and the Fostering Service. And Despina Kaura will present the report on behalf of herself and Tracy Stevenson.
That's
You wrote
correct.
the report together, didn't you? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So the report is, as always, to inform members of the work that we do as Cambridgeshire County Council's fostering service with our foster carers. And although this happens across the board in both Peterborough and Cambridgeshire, this is about Cambridgeshire's foster carers. So currently we have 163 registered households in the county, and that's excluding our connected persons, family and friends carers, of which I believe there are around 27. The report hopefully will update you on all the activity and the collaborative working that we have completed over the last 3 months. So since the last corporate parenting committee, we've got a new chair, obviously, as you're aware, with Tracy taking over from Kevin Arrowsmith, who is now the vice chair. We are hoping that the CFCA will agree a date for their annual AGM. And Tracy will be sending out a foster care survey to explore and plan business for the coming year, which needs to happen now that we've got the new chair. The service works really closely with the members of the CFCA and other carers, of course, because not everybody that supports us is part of the CFCA. I think that's important to note. Throughout the year, we have a number of opportunities where we work together, we gain the views of our foster carers, and look at development needs for the service alongside sort of outcomes for children. The fostering service will continue to attend the meetings as before, to hear feedback from carers on what works well and to continue that work, and to look at what needs to be considered and addressed and maybe developed and changed in terms of the work that we do with the wider organisation in terms of children's social care and colleagues across the organisation. So the head of service, which is relatively new in role, will continue to work alongside us and to attend the meetings of both the CFCA and the Peterborough committees. This again is to work alongside the chairs and the vice chairs to gather information. The fostering service and the CFCA continue to work together with regards to the retention group. The retention group focuses on those carers who may be voicing dissatisfaction with our service or with the task of being a foster carer. What we try to do is to respond in a really timely manner, to go out and talk to them and to look at what might be the issue and how we can resolve that. We've been able to retain 13 fostering households this year on the back of being able to work really closely and really quickly with people to resolve any issues. That's not to say that we haven't lost some, but I think it's fair to say that, although I haven't brought numbers with me, we do have an ageing population of foster carers, and we do have people retiring on the basis of their own kind of age and ill health, including family circumstances which change and, poor health of parents and so on. So, we will naturally lose some carers. We hold an at-risk register, and that at-risk register will always identify any carers that have got any issues that we need to address and how quickly we need to respond. The recruitment ambassadors from within the fostering community continue to work alongside the service, supporting recruitment activity and raising awareness of the need to recruit more foster carers, including private foster care across county. Just aware that we need to raise that awareness. We need to make sure that our communities are aware of what it means to be a private foster carer, and when they've got a child staying with them that's informal almost. So that's a big piece of work that needs to be done. Ambassadors support us by scheduling and attending community and recruitment events. They have recently supported one of our foster care coffee mornings, specifically for those that are in the inquiry and assessment stage. So it's about those people that have come to us, they've made an inquiry, and actually they want to ask questions that are answered by a foster care rather than a member of staff and the service itself. And for any applicants or potential applicants who have attended those and then eventually completed their application, feedback has been really positive in terms of how it supports them to consider, going ahead. We continue to work together around the mentoring scheme. The mentoring scheme is significant in its support and, again, retention of carers. And if carers are experiencing a difficult time, whether that might be standards of care investigations or indeed just a complex young person that they need to support, and they need informal support from another colleague, a peer, rather than the service itself. So the mentoring scheme is invaluable really in that respect. So we have regular meetings, we have monthly meetings, and we also have a support group that is just for our mentors. We allocate our mentors at the beginning of a foster carer's fostering journey, and that means when they've been approved. Our hope is to move that into the assessment stage and actually allocate somebody, match somebody up with their mentor much earlier than we're doing at the moment. So our support groups continue across the county. We always have an east, south, west, north sort of support group across the county. And we also have some that continue to be virtual, and that's to meet the needs of all our carers, either in the evenings or, people that can't make it. And these are always as popular as ever. We have speakers that come along to them, and that's other people across the service. For example, we've had the service manager for the Leaving Care service attend, and that, again, that's been invaluable in terms of what does it mean to provide a staying put service to children. What sort of support could I expect from children's PAs, that kind of conversation that could be had. We are planning our events going forward. Now, unfortunately, our Easter Activity Day has been cancelled. It's been cancelled because we all got together as a service last week, and we've got people going down quite quickly with COVID. So unfortunately, that has been cancelled. But we're planning a summer picnic at Hinginbrook and a barbecue, and we continue obviously to plan our awards evenings as we go forward, our foster care award evenings. We've implemented a feedback loop system, and this was something that myself and Fiona started before Fiona left. It has, to a certain extent, kind of slipped away, and I need to revamp that and to reinstate it. So I've begun the conversations with our colleagues in children in care services and the family safeguarding arena to look at what the issues are that carers are bringing to us and how we might work together to resolve them. Some of them are beyond the gift of the fostering service to resolve independently. So, for instance, the issue of passports continues, although we've written a policy where we have changes of staff. What we need to do is to make sure that as part of our induction programme for new staff, that people are really aware that there is a passport policy and that they need to work to it. The same applies to transport. Carers continue really to raise their issues around transport. And of course, what we have is a very different sort of approach to transport across Peterborough and Cambridgeshire, which we hope going forward will come together. But again, that's got to be raised with our colleagues in the rest of the organisation and children's services. The plan has been for the last year in terms of looking at a generic transport portal. Unfortunately, what I'm not sure about right now is going forward with the uncoupling of the organisations, whether that will be a Peterborough and Cambridgeshire portal or whether it will be just a Cambridgeshire one. So that's something that we'll see as we move towards uncoupling. The service is currently continuing to work with corporate parents to ensure that there's clarity around savings. Savings are an issue, so it's not just about putting some savings in a bank account. We know that some children have got junior ISAs, there's trust fund accounts that have all been started. Some of them a very long time ago. And we've got to get a handle on who starts them, who actually, facilitates them, and who can look at that. Because I am aware that for some children that have experienced many moves, we don't know exactly how we can access their savings, particularly when they're leaving care. So that's a project that we're picking up right now and beginning to work towards. So yeah. And obviously the issue of passports and holidays continues. We, as a local authority, recognise obviously the current financial climate, and we continue to talk to carers, particularly anyone who wants to talk to us about having difficulties. There has been there was an initial payment before Christmas in the autumn that was almost a kind of acknowledgement of the current difficulties that people are facing financially, and there's just been another one made literally a week ago of £250 per household to support with that. We have also written a new finance paper that we are presenting and looking at hopefully looking at the skills levels of payments, and which we hope will improve to support people in that area. Chair, I think I've covered what I hope I need to, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Des. And I'm interested that you say that you're Thank you very much. Yes, I'm interested that you say, I'm so sad that you've had to cancel your Easter activity, because in fact, I think all of us will have been aware of people who are going down with COVID. So it's definitely still with us, isn't it? It's not going away.
And whilst health colleagues aren't saying absolutely you've got to self-isolate or any of this, we are conscious that we've got vulnerable children and vulnerable carers.
Indeed. So I think that's absolutely sensible. The other thing I wanted to pick up with you is, do we currently have a campaign for recruiting new foster carers?
We've always got campaigns.
It's sort of an ongoing thing,
It's
isn't it?
an ongoing thing. We've got Foster Care Fortnight coming up, so that's May, and we've got interviews with a number of our carers. So we always go out with some interviews. We always try and raise the profile. Tony works actively all year round, and what we've tried to do in the past is to concentrate on certain areas, and we have kind of rethought that and wondered whether that might exclude some people. So if we say we need foster carers for teens, does that exclude anyone who might be thinking, you know what, I only want to do under fives? So I think our approach is going to be a case of we need foster carers, full stop, for any age and any sibling groups and any type.
So will you be doing any social media?
Yes, he will. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, sorry, Des, would you like to turn your microphone off just briefly? Thank you. And Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to know that we've retained those 13 fostering households. It would have been interesting to know how many were considering leaving fostering altogether, as opposed to perhaps going to a private agency. And it would have also been very interesting to have had the figures for the number in the same period who have actually left and the reasons behind those leaving. I mean, so I sit on the fostering panel, so I hear quite a few of the reasons why people leave. And some of them are unavoidable, such as they've just got to the end of their fostering career. But it would be very interesting to be able to compare the figures with that, together with possibly the number that we're taking on, to see if we've got a net loss.
Got a net loss. We have got a net loss. I can say that quite openly. And I would also agree that in some cases we are losing carers for natural and ordinary reasons. In some cases we're not. We have got carers that are deciding either to, you know, to go elsewhere. Usually it's around the remuneration package, I have to say. Because the local authority does tend to provide, and in this case for Cambridgeshire, I can say hand on heart that I know that we provide significant support, significant training, the allocation of social workers. You know, we don't have high caseloads. In fact, we really are able to support our care as well. The remuneration package makes such a difference, particularly in these times.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you want to come back on that? Okay. Councillor Slatter?
Yes, I was glad to read that we have handed over in 218 that one-off, which is a really helpful gesture, but we know it goes longer and deeper than that. And to be honest, I mean, when I was on auditing accounts last, they're on the risk register is one of the big red things, isn't it? That if we have a problem with one of the children in our care, and none of us want this to happen, but there is no bigger risk really. So I think we need to make sure that it is being followed up right through the system, and the absolutely vital importance of our foster carers is recognised. I know we all do, but sometimes we need to be reminded of it. And I know Tracy Stevenson will do a great job on that, because she has been both sides of the issue, and she is in a really good position to highlight that and just remind you of things you know, and then make sure we know about them.
I think it's as much about reminding ourselves as it is about the actions that we take. Making sure that that happens, because I think, you know, we can all say we'll do that and we've recognised this, but actually what actions are we taking to make sure that we are retaining our carers and that carers are happy enough not to leave?
Thank you. Yes. Another one I did want to ask you about, the member champion that they have in Peterborough. Have you observed some, you know, that member champion can be useful? Are they from perhaps a committee outside of the usual suspects? And is it a channel that maybe can be used in addition to what you clearly are trying to do is keep in touch with foster carers? But if there is anything that makes them hesitate, let's get round that. And, you know, would you recommend we had one?
Would recommend we have one.
Councillor Slatter, can you turn your microphone
Yes.
on?
I would recommend that we have one. I'm just not sure. So I can say that we've got 2 member champions in Peterborough, and from the perspective of one of them, we've had some really good engagement. From another one, we haven't, and I would say that is a little bit down to the service in that we haven't been able to engage as well as we might have wanted to. But actually, we can look at, and I know there's been some kind of interaction in terms of, you know, support that can be accessed via the community for carers, putting carers in touch, or carer groups in touch with certain community groups. So yes, I think it could be really useful.
Thank you.
Finally, I wanted to put on record, though, and this I've put it, you were about to say, is to thank Kevin Aberystwyth so much for what he's done generally over the years, but also I appreciate that he did a lot in educating me, and I'm glad he's carrying on as vice chair. I think we have an excellent duo there. Just to thank him and for Tracy to taking on that job.
Yes, definitely. I think we're very fortunate that the Cambridgeshire Foster Carers Association has such a thoughtful and contributory membership. It's very helpful. And yes, indeed, you're quite right. I should thank Kevin Aberystwyth and Tracy Stevenson both for their work, and for Des for working with them so well. So thank you very much indeed. So the recommendation is to note the contents of the report, and I think we've asked some questions. I would just like to ask, could we as members have data on the number of foster carers leaving and the breakdown of what they're going to, please?
Come with a grid with my report and make sure that that's really clear and obvious. Why people are leaving, how many people are leaving, what have we managed to rescue, and what haven't we, and why.
Much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming that Tracy hasn't been able to join us online. I know she was busy, so I wondered if she was available, whether she wanted to add anything at the end. Oh, okay, right, thank you. So item number 6 then is the health report, and this has been provided by Katie Liddell, who's coming to join us. She is the designated nurse for children in care for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Integrated Care Board. So thank you, Katie. And would you like to present your report? Press the big button at the bottom.
That's the one. Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here. It's my first one, so thank you for having me. I'd just like to acknowledge the timeframes really of the initial health assessments. I think they're quite stark, written in black and white in the chart.
Just remind us which page you're referring
Sorry.
to. We're on page 22 of the agenda. Is it in 2.3?
2.3, so
Yeah.
it bridges page 22 into page 23 for the initial health assessment. I came into post in August and was quite shocked by that, and asked for more of a breakdown in why the results were as they were. From the data within the report, I hope you can recognise that nearly half of the referrals that we receive from social care are after the 20 working day timeframe of when the initial health assessment should have been completed, and only 10% are received within that 5 working day target. It's also evident that this has been slipping across the quarters going into the last quarter of this year. And I'm hopeful that with this information, it's something that Michaela Berry and I can work together within our partnership meeting to try and rein that in, really, particularly for the Cambridgeshire children placed within Cambridgeshire, and tighten up those timeframes. It shouldn't be as it is, but reassuringly, all of the initial health assessments are completed. It's not that they're done within that 20 days. Some of them might be done at 21 days, 22 days. Some of them are 30, 40 working days, but they are all completed. I can assure you of that, 100% are done. The questionnaire, which was sent as an appendix with the report, that was sent to the Children in Care Council. I acknowledge it was a very small sample. It was only 4 children from Cambridgeshire, but it is reassuring that they were all saying very similar things. Something I was quite surprised by was the level of literacy. They found the questionnaire really long. 16 questions was too many. And also they took very literally some of the questions. One of the questions, an example was, do the practitioners speak to you or about you? And 100% of them said they speak about me, but I think the interpretation was they were talking about me rather than over my head to somebody else. So perhaps in future I will definitely take that into consideration. But yes, reassuring that they all want to keep face-to-face appointments, because there is a pressure within the 2 providers with Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Foundation Trust and Cambridgeshire Community Services for Cambridgeshire children, that they are moving to a virtual model, and the voice of those children is really powerful in keeping that face-to-face model. So I thank them very much for that, and Shalina for taking it to them. Dental services are improved within Cambridgeshire. They have more of a widespread access throughout the county as opposed to other areas, which is really good. I mean, it's not every dental practice that can offer a service, but I feel they are filtered throughout the county rather than grouped in one area. So it does enable access to children living throughout Cambridgeshire. And just to end on another positive really is the review health assessments. Although it's not 100%, 90% I feel is quite a grand achievement at the moment. And in comparison to our neighbouring counties within the east of England, it's by far above. what other people have been able to achieve. So I thank the health teams for that as well. These are obviously the review health assessments. You have a year to complete if they're over 5, or they're done every 6 months if they're under 5 years of age. But yeah, the rest is all in the report, which I'm sure you've read. So I'd welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. And although it's alarming, I'm actually very reassured to hear how concerned you are about the initial health assessments. I think we feel it's something that we've been asking about on our scorecard for a very long time. What I wondered is, has any benchmarking been done with other counties, whether they also find it difficult to get the initial health assessments done? Because I'm not saying that would make us feel any better, but it would actually clarify whether we were doing significantly worse than other counties. And the other thing was, I can't remember precisely where it was in your report, but the delay was the referral from, yes, here we are in 2.4, was the delay was the referral from social care. So are any steps being made to improve that step? Do you want to respond on that?
Yeah, of course. Your first point, Councillor Bradnam, is absolutely, it's a national problem. There's actually a national audit going on at the moment. It's in a pilot phase and it was just completed on the 17th of this month. The results aren't quite through, but that is nationally to get everybody else's figures for initial health assessments, because this isn't something that Cambridgeshire stands alone in, not by a long, long way. And in fact, I know we're not at the bottom of that table either. Not that, you know, we should be proud of our results, but they are working really, really hard to do what they can do. And the health element of that is they are turning around from the point of receiving the referral to the initial health assessment being completed. They're not far off their time frame. They're doing that in 16.5 days from the point of receiving the referral and the consent. And nothing can be done before that referral and consent is received by the health team. So actually, if we can just tighten up how quickly that's received, I think we can make a big difference, because the health appointments are there for these children. It's just the consent that's holding it up.
So that's really encouraging in some ways, because I was wondering, you know, apart before I read this paragraph, whether it was because health in general is having a struggle, you know, it's recovering from COVID and trying to catch up, and then strikes and things. So it's not that bit's happening in time, isn't it? It's the referral from social care. Mm-hmm. So can you just clarify for me how that bit happens and why that bit's slow?
So the target is 5 working days from a child becoming looked after to the consent and referral. They're 2 different elements. The consent has to come from the biological parent, which often delays things because sometimes they're not willing to give that. Sometimes the social worker, this is what I've spoken to Michaela about, because I don't work with my local authority colleagues, but often children that are removed in really diabolical circumstances, the social worker is forming court reports and going down a legal route. These children are not going to be returned home because of the abuse they've witnessed or been exposed to. So for those social workers, chasing up a referral and a consent isn't their priority. It's getting what's called a PLO to have those children removed and become much more within a legal domain. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be done, because the child still needs a health assessment, but amongst that, there's paediatric medicals that happen with doctors within 24 hours. So they are seen. This is more of a long-term, looking at their medical history and other things that have happened within their lifetime. So remind me of the other part of your question, Chair.
Was it? I was just wondering what caused it to be slow, but
it
actually,
is something
the traumatic
on.
circumstances in which the children are moving is undoubtedly why other things take a higher priority. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was on the questionnaire, the question that you asked about, do the clinicians speak to you or do the adults speak about it? Was actually, did they understand? One child wrote that they didn't know what the clinician was. And actually, it struck me that mostly the language was completely understandable, but actually we need to be mindful of the likely ability of the children in this cohort, and we need to be gentle and provide language that they can easily understand, and that's in the frame of their own vocabulary. It was very sad, though, that there were only 4. And I remember at the last meeting, we were discussing how the return rate on the questionnaires could be improved. And because it's just 4 out of 644 children, I think. No, sorry.
No, forgive me. This is a questionnaire that went to the Children in Care Council. So it went to Shalina's groups just for some feedback on their experience of health appointments. Okay. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. No, that's it wasn't like the SDQ, Strengths and Difficulties questionnaire. That was very separate. This was more about getting some feedback to try and keep the face-to-face appointments. And actually, we didn't have to manipulate that at all. That was very clear that that's what they want to keep. Really, they're just like us. They want to see people.
To have face-to-face. Yeah. Okay, that's great. And thank you for the interesting presentation. It was a useful way of looking at it. Members, did anybody have? Yes, sorry, thank you. Mr. Sampson.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, Chair. Just to reassure you, as head of service for the assessment service, which is part of the team that brings in young people, I'm happy to work and with my managers to see if we can look at how we can speed up that process to try and improve the initial health assessment process. And I think the other thing that's just worth noting in terms of the high percentage reviews on time, you may never get 100%, because obviously all the young people have a right to say, I don't want a medical examination. So a small percentage is always potentially not going to be. So I think 95% is a really excellent performance.
And absolutely, I was thinking that as Katie was speaking, but also I'm very pleased that you were able to report they've all been done, albeit maybe a little bit later than we would have wished. Councillor Slatter.
Yes, I'm almost surprised that they had all been done, because it does seem to me that if you cap the number at 15 a month and you get more than 15 a month children coming in, you are going to get a backlog. And I couldn't really work out from the scorecard just how many we have coming into our care each month. I mean, you could sort of work it out from the ones who are 0 to 6 months, but it's not quite as clear as it may. If it's easy to capture that, it might be that would be something to have in our reports. Could you, first question is, could you just reassure me that although the initial health assessment is something that is really holistic and not something probably that most children have or need to have, but on the other hand, if there was something wrong and they needed to go to the GP, hopefully as soon as they have a home, they will be registered with the GP. And that is a separate issue, because it could be read as they haven't seen a doctor at all, and they might be really ill. But we are assuming that if there's obviously a medical problem, yes, you're nodding, but I just wanted to get that on the record.
As a result of the initial health assessment, there's a health action plan. We know it as a HAP.
Sorry, Councillor Slatter, can you turn your mic?
Yes, that would.
Okay.
So the health action plan lays out who's responsible for which actions related to that child's health. So it might be an action for the foster carer to take the child to the dentist, or it might be an action for the social worker to register them with a GP, or it could be anything like that. If they're new into care and they've moved to a new placement or new home within the county, it might not be where they were registered previously. So the health action plan stipulates whose actions are aligned to which service or person.
Thank you. And that action plan comes before the assessment. If there's, it doesn't.
No, the action plan is formulated as a part of the assessment. So the paediatrician assesses the child, and as a result of what actions need to be to happen, the health action plan is created.
Well, I'm just imagining a child in the foster home for the first night, and there's clearly a medical problem, you would hope that the foster carer could then take them to their
I
own
think that's how
GP.
it happens, Councillor Slatter.
Well,
Mr.
that's right.
Sampson, do you want to speak?
Yeah, if the child's got an immediate health issue, that's picked up as part of that child protection medical, that initial medical, so that's dealt with. The initial health assessment then does an overarching assessment of the child to look at whether there's any ongoing treatment or whether it's just normal GP, regular GP visits that you would have with any childhood that gets any childhood illnesses.
Fine, so it's that first taking into care when we were talking about the transition from referral from social care. Fine, thank you. The other thing I'm afraid is dental services. I'm not reassured by this, and you didn't really mean that should be, did you? To have no concerns raised about accessing urgent dental care. It's prevention with developing mouths. We must get in there sooner. And although you understandably say the expectation to register privately is unrealistic, we know that there is money in central government that is actually earmarked for dental services. And sometimes it is difficult for them to get it to where it needs to be. But this is such a clear thing that must be nationwide. Children in care should be able to go and get private dentistry if that's the only thing available. Because for the cost it is, at the time of their lives, they've got enough problems without being embarrassed about bad teeth and just not getting that they need with a developing mouth, let alone learning how to look after themselves. So I wonder if we ought to be thinking about pushing that. I know you've written letters to ministers before now, and this might be one to consider with your professional colleagues to see, because it has been established in Parliament that there is unspent funds. And if we can, on behalf of our children, get access to that, I would hope that maybe if their other colleagues agree, that would be a possible thing to at least investigate.
So indeed, I have already written letters to the relevant government officers about dental health. I know it's a small thing, but I wondered whether there is still a provision in schools, and I expect it's a service that's becomes pressed out by financial and time constraints. But when I was at primary school, we had a dental health nurse who came and demonstrated to us how to clean our teeth properly. And every time I clean my teeth, I do it in the way she taught me to. And I still use a manual toothbrush. I know lots of people don't, but I just wonder is there any provision of that type going into schools these days to actually help children learn how to properly clean their teeth?
It's not something I'm actually aware of. I have children in primary school, and it's not something that they've told me they've had, but I had something very similar when I was at school, a pink disclosing tablet that highlighted the areas that you'd missed. So yeah, it is something I can find out, absolutely.
I think it would be really useful and a good use of time. So Mr. Sampson?
Chair, it might be worthwhile you may be asking the Director of Public Health whether or not that's something that the Public Health Services do now, as they are now the local authorities resource. Yeah.
The Healthy Mouth programme, I was just trying to say, within our public health colleagues, and although there may be some children who've slipped through the net or haven't been able to take it in, there is a very good programme and videos that can be provided for preschool and early years, just the Healthy Mouth routines. So that is, of course, what
sorry, Councillor Slatter, are you saying from your own experience of schools, or are we saying
no?
That's
this is from
something
Adults and Health
nationally?
Committee.
Okay,
local information, but that's to be checked up with Jyoti. She'll be able to give you chapters.
Okay. So can we make a note that I would like to ask that question of the Director of Public Health, please? Thank you. Mr. Sampson, did you have anything further? Okay, thank you. So, members, did you? Thank you, Councillor Brouillard, if you have a question.
Thank you. Just on the paragraph 2.4 that speaks about the reasons behind the assessment timings. I was going to ask about the young people placed out of area because it says that the reasons are not known, but of course likely to be impacted. Oops, the lights just gone up by their own service delivery. So I was wondering if we could actually find out to see if it's any difference to Cambridgeshire or not. I mean, I would expect them to be very similar, but it would be interesting linking the question around comparing with other areas as well to see if there are any similarities and differences compared to neighboring authorities. So that's more of a comment, but if you want to comment on it, please do.
Thank you. That's something that I think the audit that it's NHS England that are completing nationally across England. And I think although it's just been the pilot that's been established at the end of this month, it goes live on the 1st of April. So I'll be able to share those quarterly reports with you about what the figures are like across England.
Yeah, it would be really, really helpful to have for the committee to have this information, because I'm just curious to see how the different authorities compare. And just to comment on the questionnaire as well. I note that the children did add some options or commented on some of the questions. So I was wondering how the questionnaire was designed, because in future it may be helpful to design it from the start with children rather than like adding or suggesting options afterwards, especially if there are a few that want to be involved. So we make sure it reflect the different options and the terms that children do use. So I was wondering what the process behind that was. I found it really interesting how the children added don't know as an option, and often yes or no questions are quite difficult to answer on some topics. So it was really, really interesting to see the options that are actually added.
Actually, it was very interesting that they wrote IDK, which I later decoded as I don't know.
But they actually put K, which is encouraging.
But the feedback was that they preferred multiple choice questions, which as a health service, I find that really difficult because it doesn't have an open-ended response to allow them, if I confine it to 6 or 7 answers, the answer that they want to give might not be there. But I take the point. We should do things in conjunction with our young people. Thank you.
We just need to be aware that that's lovely that you will be prepared to bring back the NHS audit to this committee, but we have a somewhat sporadic timetable of meetings, so perhaps we can liaise with Rishendra about when that would best come back to us, even if it's just as a written paper that we can see in between times. That would be great. Thank you very much indeed. So Councillor Hay, did you have anything? No questions. Okay, thank you very much. So thank you very much, Katie, and also thank you very much for the in-depth analysis that you were prompted to do. I think it's really interesting to see what's come out of that, so thank you. So members, I asked to note the content of the report and raise any queries with lead officers. So we've got Mr. Sampson offering to work with officers to speed up the referrals from child social care. We've got an undertaking to contact the Director of Public Health about the Healthy Mouth programme and whether that goes into preschools or all schools, or if she could give us some information about that. And also Katie has said that the audit report from NHS England is due to be published in April, so we look forward to receiving a summary of that or information back from that at either our next meeting or so Rishendra, would you like to clarify whether you think we could bring that back to our next meeting?
I think, Chair, if I speak to Katie outside and we'll see when that falls, and then we can discuss whether you want that circulated in advance.
Thank you very much. Right. Okay, so members, the next item is item 7, which is the performance scorecard And we are familiar with the format, but often the data tells us something different. So I'm going to let others ask questions first. Do you have anything, Councillor Hay? Thank you.
My questions on health assessments and dental have already been answered, but I was wondering on page 40 under staffing, the average caseload, particularly for the independent reviewing officers, is that particularly high compared to neighbouring authorities?
We've asked this sort of question, haven't we, in the past? We've got Michaela Berry, who looks as if she's in a car.
Hello, I am, and I'm really sorry I can't be there in person, but I'm happy to answer questions on the scorecard if I can. I know Matthew might help me out if I've got any difficulties. Also a little bit worried about the connection because it keeps cutting out, but if you can hear me, I'm happy to answer.
We can hear you remarkably clearly, so thank you.
Oh, great. Oh, I'm pleased. No, just to reassure you, the number of cases, the independent reviewing officers, they chair the children's reviews every 6 months, and that is well within the recommended guidance of 70 cases. I think it might actually be 72 nationally. So no, we're doing okay on that. The children in care and leaving care caseloads are higher than we'd want them to be at the moment. We're aiming to have social workers at caseloads of around 18 so they can, spend more time with children really. And we're working towards that with extra capacity within the teams and recruiting quite hard at the moment. So yeah, we're hoping we'll see those numbers come down over time.
Thank you very much. And okay, I've got a couple of other questions then. I just wanted to, I know this isn't something we maybe have immediate control over, but on page 41, the top left quadrant, we're looking at the percentage of school-aged children in care who are in good or outstanding schools is 66.6%, which means that 33% are not. And I just wonder if we have any control over that, or whether we have any way of influencing that. Michaela?
Yeah, sure. So we would not place we would avoid at all costs placing a child in a school that was not good or outstanding. But what we don't want to do is move children unnecessarily from schools that receive a different Ofsted, or they're already in a school and we can maintain them in that school. So it is a really considered decision with our virtual school colleagues about that school and putting in support where necessary. But that's the reason that percentage is not as high as we would want it to be, because we want to avoid unnecessary moves for children. But we wouldn't place a child newly into a school that wasn't good or outstanding, if that makes sense.
I understand that. Thank you very much. And the other one I wanted to ask was about the timeliness of the adoption process. And I know there's a wish to ensure that children achieve permanency wherever possible and as soon as possible, because it makes their lives so much more stable. But I just noticed on this timeliness of the adoption process, we've got time to placement appears to be increasing at 521 days compared to our target of 420. This is on page 41 on the right hand side in green. And the other side of that chart is the time to match children. Our target is 185, and yet actually the time to match is approximately double that. And I wondered, Michaela, do we have a strategy to try and improve that?
I have to say that that's not the area of service that I oversee. My colleague Joanne Banks oversees the Regional Adoption Agency, and she'd be in a much better position to provide you with that level of detail information. So I'd like to recommend, Chair, that you request a report from her on those two figures. One thing I would like to say is quite often with these figures, there's one or two children that really skew the data. So it gives there's one or two children that have been waiting a very long time for an adoptive placement for various reasons, given that they're sort of difficult there's a number of factors that make it difficult to find adoptive home for, but we don't want to give up looking for one. And it can be that those children then skew these figures. But that's just my, I suppose, guess in a way, really. And I just sort of invite you to ask Jo Banks to provide a report on the detailed information behind those figures.
Thank you, Michaela. And yes, I'm going to ask Rashenda to note that we'll ask for such a report. Thank you. Right, members, Councillor Slatter. Yeah.
Yes, to follow up on Councillor Bradnam's question about schools and the assessments in terms of what sort of reputation the school has. It sounded slight alarm bells with me insofar as there may well be siblings in the foster home, and that presumably is something we would also take into account insofar as it really makes life very difficult for a foster carer if they're expected to take them somewhere else, especially if the implication is that the local one that their children are going to isn't good enough. So presumably that's another of the things that you weigh up and doesn't really help us understand the final statistic.
Yeah, absolutely. We take a really holistic view of it. Absolutely. Yeah, you're completely right.
And we know from our interaction with the children who come to our informal meetings how important being with siblings is. So thank you very much for taking that into account. Right, I don't think I have any further questions, and I can't see any further from members. So thank you very much, members. We'll note, and we have noted and asked various questions of the officers. And thank you very much, Michaela, for taking part from your car.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad your connection stayed with you for that time. Thank you. So item 8 is the subcommittee's workshop and training plan. So that's on page 43 onwards. So I'd like to draw members' attention to a workshop being run by the virtual school on Thursday, the 27th of April. And that's the intention of that is to develop our understanding of the effects of relational and developmental trauma and loss on children and young people. This includes looking at how trauma can affect brain development and impact on behaviour and learning, and the impact that trauma and attachment difficulties can have on a young person's life. The session will be making use of Cornerstone virtual reality training headsets, folks, which will be exciting, to give us a greater understanding of a young person's lived experience. So if you'd like to book a place, please contact Claire Hines at the virtual school. And
Are the details on the report, Chair?
I believe we may have received an email about it. Rashenda.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, an email did go out from Claire, but I can forward that on to you, Councillor, if that would be helpful.
That would be good, yes. I'd love to try one of those headsets.
I think all of us would quite like to try.
Presumably we have to come in, it's here, or we'll find out anyway. Hope it doesn't clash with anything.
Okay, so thank you very much. So members we'll encourage you to encourage everyone, including me, to have a go at that. So do you have any other comments on the workshop and training plan? Councillor Slatter.
Yes, maybe not so much as training as a briefing. Might even just be a very clear email. But back in the last, the health report 2.12, and I'm glad Mr. Sampson's here for this, we are introduced to yet another acronym, hurrah.
Are you referring to the minutes of the last meeting?
No, the health report we've just
the health report, okay. What page are you on?
2.12, page 28.
Thank you. Yes.
We all love a new acronym, Parker. Now this, no, joking, it's not joking. You might have been going to ask the same question, Alex. Given the number of unaccompanied asylum seekers we have in our area, to know a little bit more about what this organisation has to offer.
So just to clarify, so we're not doing what we ask our report writers not to do. So this is the Peterborough Asylum and Refugee Community Association. Sorry, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So what was I would welcome a little bit about this, because it will come through health and adults and health for commissioning and that sort of thing. So to have an understanding of what they have to offer and whether it's what we need and whether it's enough of what we need, would be very welcome, but it doesn't need to be anything that requires a lot of officer preparation. I'm sure it may even just be a paragraph, but that I would appreciate that being fitted in somewhere, please.
So that's a briefing on what Parker do.
Yes, what they have to offer, because I think this is a new thing for us, is it? And obviously a new increased use for us anyway.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think that'd be a very good idea. Thank you. We've made a note of that then.
If officers in their judgment decide, well, there's lots of other things we should know, I'm sure it'll roll up into something really good.
Thank you very much for that suggestion. Okay, so are there any other requests for training or suggestions for what should go on our agendas? I think obviously the agenda plan tends to be driven by the sequence of meetings and the themes of those meetings and the informal and formal meetings. But members, if any of you think of something that you think we ought to have on the agenda, please do let us know and we can fit it in. I wanted to ask there was on page 45 was the journeys for children in care training. I see. Sorry, I misread it. It's a narrative that goes on from page 44, and actually lots of us did do that training. It looked to me as if we hadn't done it, but in fact we did. But the narrative goes over 2 pages. That's fine. Okay, good. So thank you very much, members. I think right there. So has anybody got anything they think we need to add to the agenda plan? I don't think so. Right. So that concludes today's business, and I declare the meeting closed at 5:15. So thank you very much indeed, members, and we'll see you. Shenda, do you want to remind us of the date of the next meeting before we finish? The next one will be in May, but that would be the informal meeting on and oh yes, agenda plan. This should say this should say homes. This on page 48, it should say homes, not placement. If you remember, it was the request and from the young people to refer to homes, not placement. So thank you very much, members, and I'll close the meeting. Thank you.